Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. We may be having Jacob join us here shortly and jump in and talk a little ball. Maybe Emilio as well. I think Tim is out tonight. Just wanted to kind of reset everything from the day. If you guys have been following the channel, following the news, obviously things got really interesting with the Matt LaFleur negotiation up in Green Bay. I know a lot of people missed the show earlier today. So the plan was to get in here and just kind of talk with the guys, whether Jacob could join or not. Hit with the chat and just kind of get everybody's take on everything. And we got a new poll question that went out by Bill Hubert that reached a lot more votes than obviously my puny reach gets over there on X. So we'll talk about those results in terms of how the fan base feels about Matt LaFleur. We'll kind of recap everything that happened with Matt LaFleur earlier. We'll also recap what we know on Jeff Hafley in terms of the updates there. He did complete that interview in Miami, so we'll kind of have a little conversation about it. And then I'd like to wrap up talking about two potential free agents that are Green Bay Packers right now that are set to hit free agency and maybe what their value would be. This is kind of a continuation of the videos we did the other day where we talked about Rasheed Walker and Romeo Dobbs. Would we be willing to pay their market value, or will we just let them walk in free agency, that type of thing? So we'll get into all that. Before we do, if you would, do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your day. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, let us know in the comments what you're looking for. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you never miss out on any of these future shows. All right. Nick McSwain said, Clayton, could you do YouTube polls too? We can. You got to do it kind of as the stream's created. I don't have time to do one right now. Maybe we'll do a fresh one tomorrow and kind of see what the YouTube crowd, how they feel about that. But again, really cool to see Bill Huber throw that poll question out there. I'm going to say this. I got a little hate mail in the DMs for the poll question I put up, asking what the fans think about Matt LaFleur. Do you want him back or not? I will say this about the very loud minority when it comes to the Matt LaFleur conversation. They're pretty damn toxic. One told me to I'm trying to think here. I got to be careful on YouTube. The worst imaginable thing that someone could tell someone, right? In terms of go blank yourself. All right. And we're not talking about just a 4-letter word here. We're talking about the worst of the worst. So it is pretty wild that people take it to that extent, right? I mean, we've been talking about this for, ever since the Bears game, right? Talking about, will Matt LaFleur be back? Will he not? I made it vocal. I want Matt back. But hey, if they decide to move on from Matt LaFleur, I'm still a Packer fan. I'm still going to be rooting for him. I'm still going to be covering them, and we're going to be diving into stuff on a daily. It's just wild how there are some people out there. And this wasn't a Twitter profile with 13 followers either. And it wasn't a huge name, but it's like, man, that's where you guys have gotten to with this. It's just wild. Absolutely wild. So anyway, let's steer away from that and not make this show about that. Let's dive into the Matt LaFleur stuff. Here's the poll question that Bill Huber put up. And you guys, you're probably already following Bill Huber. If you're not, go give him a follow. He's one of my favorite follows. Love the articles he writes. He does a hell of a job. He said, congratulations. You were hired as Packers president. What's your plan? He gives you 4 options. Fire Matt LaFleur, fire Brian Gutekunst, fire both, or keep them both and pray for health. All right. And the poll results were, I'm talking about, it wasn't even close. 72% of the fan base. And he's up to 5,200 votes now, right? 5,259 votes, as a matter of fact. 72.1% of the fan base that voted on this said keep both and pray for health. And if you comb through social media for the last 7 days, well, shorter than that, I guess you could say, the last few days, you would think it was the opposite, right? 72%. Isn't it amazing how the number keeps getting closer and closer, or further and further in favor of Matt LaFleur the further we get away from that tough loss to the Bears? It's like the emotions are wearing off and people are realizing, Yeah, he probably is a pretty damn good coach, right? And that's probably our best bet right now, to try to run this thing back and get everybody healthy, right? Would probably be the best scenario here. Coach Lynn in the chat says, "Bring back Matt LaFleur. Let's get over the hump the right way and win this thing." I agree, man. Again, man, if there was another option out there that was like, "Oh no, man, this dude is way better than Matt LaFleur. That's the guy for the job," I'd be all for it. Like, all right, cool. But like Ryan has said on the Packernet podcast over and over and over, shout out to him. You guys make sure you subscribe to Packernet podcast anywhere you get your podcast. That's where you can hear this podcast, but more importantly, hear his podcast, daily Packernet podcast, and then also he's got Packernet After Dark where you can call in, leave a voicemail, be a part of the show there. So make sure you guys check that out. But it's like, who do you want to bring in? You know, who's your choice? If it's John Harbaugh, okay, cool, we can respect that, but that's not my choice. Go look at the track record. Not that good, you know? And again, it's funny too, because I think Baltimore fans would much rather have Matt LaFleur as their coach as they would John Harbaugh, and they just fired John Harbaugh, obviously. So, and interviews are taking place all over the place. Brian Flores got an interview, I think, with Baltimore, if I remember correctly. So all that's starting to shake loose, and you're at least starting to see all the interest in which potential coaches, right? So hopefully in the next day or two, we'll start to get some answers as to where everybody is going to end up, right? Let's see here. Packer Doug says, today, Tauscher mentioned that James Campen, former player, would likely come back to coach O-line. Boy, Coach Campy, man, anybody who ever played for Coach Campy, anybody who coached with Campy, anybody who knows him they love this dude. I'd be all for it. We had some solid offensive lines when he was here, right? And he had a hell of a run. The fact that Tauscher mentioned that he, would likely come back to coach O-line kind of makes you wonder, did they have a conversation? I don't know if he said they had a conversation or not, Doug. Now he would probably know him just as good as anyone, right? He played for him. There's something's got to give on the offensive line. It just does. Either our GM is absolutely horrible with the moves he made this year in terms of shoring up the offensive line. Because guys, remember, this isn't something new. We talked about this. Immediately following the Eagles' loss last year in the playoffs. It was like, we got to get better up front. We got bullied up front. We got to get better up front. And then we go through draft season. You spend a second-round pick on Anthony Belton. You go out and you spend a good chunk of money on Aaron Banks, and you think, all right, we were spot on. That's what they did, right? Now, I wanted a 3-tech too. I wanted another 3-tech. We weren't able to get that, obviously. They went out and got a cornerback. As much as people like to pretend like they ignored the cornerback position, they didn't ignore it. It just, as of the moment, seems like they swung and missed on Nate Hobbs, right? And I understand that happens from time to time, right? It does. But one thing I do want to point out that's a common thread between Bill Huber's poll question and my poll question I put up. I actually put up a poll question that said you can only keep one. Would you keep LaFleur or Goody? It was like 52% said Goody. So, and here you see the poll question kind of matches that, right? Goody has the least amount here at 3.9% in terms of firing him. And Matt LaFleur was at 15.8%. So that definitely holds true across, obviously, both poll questions. So really, really interesting there for sure. Chris N says, just replace Goot and roll. I mean, you could do that, right? You could go that route. And I know like people like to compare the way he's built his roster to, how the Eagles GM, is it Howie Roseman, I believe, has built that roster. And then obviously there was a lot of comps a few years ago when the Rams won the Super Bowl. They went out and made a flurry of moves, said F them draft picks, right? They went out and got really, really aggressive with the roster. They won a Super Bowl, got over the hump. So there's still some people that bring that up, like, we're pretending like Brian Gutekunst is a great GM. Well, how come these other GMs have kind of lapped him now, right? With the Eagles, I mean, I believe that's the second championship Howie Roseman's won. If I remember correctly, he was there the first time. They let him go, then they bring him back, and he wins another one, right? So if there's a choice out there like that, Chris, where you're like, okay, yeah, he's hands down way better than Brian Gutekunst, I'd be about that too, just like I'd be about an improvement over Matt LaFleur. I just don't know who that is, right? I don't know who that general manager is that you go, or that young executive. Now, I will say this is going to ruffle some feathers, but if you see it, you got to say it, right? You guys remember when we made the choice with Goody, we had a young Elliott Wolf in the house, right? Ron Wolf's son. And we kind of decided Goody over him, and then Elliott Wolf left. And now obviously Elliott Wolf ends up in New England. Elliott Wolf turned that around real quick in New England, didn't he? So that one kind of stings. Like maybe that would have been the better choice. I don't know. It's still early. Maybe they'll get boat race this week in the playoffs and never sniff the playoffs again. I highly doubt that, based off how they've been playing, right? But everybody gives Mike Vrabel all the credit, and I think he deserves a ton of credit up there. But you also got to give Elliott Wolf and his staff a lot of credit there as well. Sorry, Jen. Jen says pain, Clayton. I know. That's why you heard the hesitation in my voice. I didn't want to say it out loud, but it kind of is what it is, right? It's and listen, you're going to miss on stuff, right? You're going to miss on a GM hire or a head coach hire. You're damn sure going to miss on draft picks. Every team misses on draft picks. So, it is what it is. It's part of the game. But I think the biggest thing, there's a conversation taking place right now about Aaron Banks, and we're probably going to get into that stuff tomorrow. Okay. Where it's like, okay, we got to weigh out our options. Do you want to keep them or cut them? Here's how much they're against the cap. Here's how much you can free up. Obviously, restructure is always on the table with a player that's got room between a base salary and the actual guaranteed money in which you can convert salary to signing bonus, cut down on the cap, cash over cap. If you want to play the voidable year game, you can do that as well. But the Aaron Banks conversation was, I think it was our buddy Wendell Ferreira over on X that had put it out there. I think it was. I could be wrong. But somebody posed the question of, do you cut loose Aaron Banks or do you bring him back, right? Well, the numbers that Spot Track has, and they may be a little bit different with over the cap, and you guys may have a little bit different numbers, but overall, essentially what you've got with Aaron Banks is a $24 million cap hit. If you cut him, you're going to free up roughly $4 million. So you got to ask yourself, is it worth not having Aaron Banks on the roster just to free up $4 million? Somebody said keep him and put him on the bench as a backup. And it's like, whoa, that's a lot of money to have on the bench, right? If he does indeed eat up $24 million against the cap, I don't like that idea, right? I'd rather try to trade him for a 7th round pick or something, Now, I don't know who would take on the remainder of that contract and exactly how that would work. But that's just another interesting conversation that's kind of out there right now, right? So, let's see here what Jen Wright says. One more year, he was playing hurt like Hobbs. See, Jen, I can get that too, because when you get into the 3rd year, I'm pretty sure the number gets even more tolerable, and we'll break that down in a little more detail tomorrow. But yeah, if you kind of get through this year, then next year, you could save even more money cutting him loose. What I think the worst of the entire situation and scenario would be, you cut him loose after this year, he goes somewhere else. It was that he was hurt and he plays great, and it's like, well, hell, we had the answer. We just expected him to be the answer while he was trying to play banged up all year long and trying to get healthy throughout camp, right? But it was pretty rough, though. Jason Y asked, what was Aaron Banks' PFF grade last year? I can't remember, Jason. I don't know. Sometimes I hit these, sometimes I don't. For some reason, I'm thinking it was in the mid-60s, but I could be wrong. Okay, because I do remember when we signed him and we looked through everything, it was like, oh, man, that don't make a lot of sense. But I trust Goody, and I said this earlier today, because Goody found Zach Tom in the 4th round. Goody found Rasheed Walker in the 7th round, right? Goody's got a pretty good track record of putting an offensive line together in terms of that. Now we're getting to the point where it's like, does he really? Does he? But does he? So it's kind of the exception in the rule type conversation, right? So, yeah. So there you go. Again, just want to kind of reset Matt LaFleur, that information, the updates there. We covered it pretty extensively. Essentially just paraphrasing before we wrap this up here, this segment, Adam Schefter earlier this morning on ESPN Radio with Jen Latta, he actually said that people he talked to around the league says that Matt LaFleur is a top 5 coach, and he feels like the longer this goes on, the more you're like, okay, this is up in the air. I think it's what he said. The longer it lingers, the more you wonder how I would interpret it right now is it's up in the air. Okay. He also went on to say, most places would have a high level of interest for Matt LaFleur. I don't know if maybe they would hold up. They would hold up and say, Team X, you want him, give us a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick, right? And then he went on to say, why would you give up a pick when you could hire a John Harbaugh or somebody, keep your pick, and get him at a discounted rate for the offset clauses that's within the rules of hiring and firing coaches. That type of stuff comes into play, obviously, as well. And then he went on to say, if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm saying if you don't want to pay me, then let me go, right? The reality is, if Matt LaFleur hits the open market dude's probably going to get somewhere between 15 and 20 million per year. That's what the market is suggesting. So keep that in mind, right? Yeah, I agree, Coach. He said there's some truth to his remarks. I agree. And there's some people going, oh, this is a BS report. This is it. Again, I laid the foundation before we dove into it. Adam Schefter, to me, it's very, 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 very obvious. He's getting information from Matt LaFleur's camp and that agency, and they're playing the PR game, right, to kind of give themselves leverage. And I'm sure he's got sources within the building as well. He didn't make it up out of thin air, I don't believe, I guess is what I'm saying there. So, again, we talked about the offset. And then people started mentioning Kevin Stefanski, and I did the poll question. The poll question was, which would you rather have, Kevin Stefanski or Matt LaFleur? It was 91% of the fans said Matt LaFleur over Kevin Stefanski. So at the time, maybe that's changed a little bit, but obviously it can't change too much. So there you go. That's just kind of a quick rundown. Again, we wanted to reset, kind of give you guys a rundown on the Matt LaFleur situation. Now let's shift gears. First of all, if you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about the Matt LaFleur situation? Hopefully we've kept you up to date. And then tomorrow or the next day, we'll have news that breaks on it. We'll probably give you the latest tomorrow. There may be some more stuff kind of trickle out and kind of point us in which direction this thing may or may not be going, right? That's possible tomorrow as well. But let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you know when we go live in the future. I'm with you, Steph. Steph said Kevin Stefanski. What a joke. I'm with you on that one. I was surprised at how many people commented too, though. I mean, I know it was just showing 10% wanted Kevin Stefanski over LaFleur, but there were a couple people in there that were adamant about it. I was just like, holy cow, I'm just going to – I hate arguing with people, so there comes a point where I'm just not going to respond. I'm going to stop responding. We're not going to change each other's mind, right? So we got your take, you got mine, let's move it along type thing. And then, of course, we talked about Hafley earlier today. If you guys missed this earlier today, just a quick recap. First of all, an update on what we covered today, what we're about to just hit on real quick was – that I want to make sure we miss anything. Okay, cool. Actually, we'll hit that here in a second, Packer Doug. Thank you for those numbers. You're laying out the numbers, the balance, the budget. So Jeff Hafley completed his interview in Miami. Here's what's interesting, guys. I know they've got multiple interviews set up and everything, right? I think they've got Campanelli coming in maybe tomorrow. I know they scheduled it. I don't know when they scheduled it, but they've got an interview scheduled there. But Harbaugh with the Giants, if you look at the buzz around that, he met with the quarterback. He met with everybody today. You've got Diana Rossini coming out in the coming out on Twitter and basically saying all he's got to do is say, yes, the Giants want him. That's their guy, right? So I want to draw kind of a stark contrast between the Jeff Hafley interview in Miami and the John Harbaugh one, right? John Harbaugh left on his, he wants to explore other options, it sounds like, but that offer's on the table. The Giants want him bad. You're not getting that vibe with Jeff Hafley coming out of Miami, right? That's not to say he won't get the job. He may get the job, but it's just a little bit different feel than John Harbaugh, right? I don't think it's the same situation where it's like, okay, they're looking to not let him out of the building. They let him out of the building, right? And he's on to Arizona tomorrow. Now, again, all it takes is one of these teams to fall in love with him because we know he's going to knock the interview out of the freaking park, right? So with that being said, the fact that he left Miami and that had the largest betting odds, he was kind of the only, as we pointed out here, I believe, and I see Ricky being mentioned. Jim, what are you talking about? Let me know in the chat as quick as possible. I didn't see any previous comment there. If you're talking about, are you talking about Pretty Ricky? Is Pretty Ricky back on the streets again? Let me know if that's the case. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat there. That's why I like having multiple hosts so we can kind of dig into this stuff as they chat. But again, the odds on favorite to get the Miami Dolphins job with Jeff Hafley at plus 150. I'm interested and eager tomorrow morning. I'm going to try to do a morning show like we did today. I'm going to wake up and check those odds again if I forget, okay? And I want to kind of look at it and see, did it shift? Did it change? Or is the market kind of feeling like me that, hey, they let him out of the building? Does that mean that not necessarily the interview didn't go great, but it, wasn't enough to kind of knock their socks off type thing, okay? So we'll kind of continue to keep an eye on that. Here we go. So Jen Wright says Ricky with HIA and Harbaugh. What is HIA? See, I'm so stupid. Emilio, help me out here. What's HIA mean?
I don't know. HIA, that's a new one for me.
When I see HIA, I think HOA, and I have a flashback to when I owned my first home, which was a condo, and boy, those people hated me, man. They were like, "Hey, your dogs are barking." I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna get louder now? You complain? I don't give a rat's ass." You know what I mean?
I don't know what to tell you.
I grew up in the woods of Kentucky. You think I'm gonna cater to a bunch of people who think they're more important than other people? Like, no.
It was that moment Clay knew he needed some acreage.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's HOA. That's what I said. HOA. I know, man. That's what I said. I had a flashback when I seen HIA. I thought HOA. Stop making me look stupider than I already am, Donovan. All right. So, trying to see exactly. So, it's a typo. Giants. Okay, gotcha. Giants. Okay. So, yeah, I think Ricky with Giants and Harbaugh. I guess what she's saying. So, I'll try to look that up, make sure nothing broke there, and go through some other stuff. So anyway, Emilio, I don't know how much of the pod you caught earlier today. We're kind of talking Hafley right now. So we'll see if we can keep this on topic for a second. How do you feel about the whole Hafley situation? I was just saying just now, I don't know how much of it you heard, but Hafley was the betting favorite to get the Miami Dolphins job as of earlier today. He interviewed, but it's a lot different feel with Harbaugh coming out of the Giants. And I'm going to check Twitter to see if he actually got the job or not. That may be what the breaking news is, if there is anything there, right? But the fact that they let Hafley out of the building, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, we're going to interview other candidates. I don't know. It just feels a little different. Am I wrong there, you think?
Yeah, no, I feel like there is a point where you're like, hey, I mean, if this is the guy, you don't let him leave. You don't, it's one of those where you're willing and dealing, Clay. You got to be willing to walk away from the deal. If you're not willing to walk away and he's your man, you hammer that out right then and there, because you might as well get started on the offseason stuff as fast as possible. I mean, for all of these teams, let alone us, but everybody else, like you've been saying, we got to get it squared away with Matt so we know where we're moving in the future, so that you can get your squad, your team together and get preparing. You're only going to get a little bit of time off for, your little recess, and then you're back to it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not seeing any updates there. I'm not following Ricky anymore. We actually DM back and forth a little bit during the Micah Parsons stuff. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, we had somebody in the building too, believe it or not, that was feeding a little bit of information there. Just like we had somebody in the building that kind of gave us some details on Jordan Love's contract that ended up being true. Because I'm looking at these people going, they might be pulling my damn leg. Like, you know what I mean? This goes on all the time. There's smoke screens everywhere, but it seemed to be a pretty good source. I doubt they're watching, but if they were, they're probably going, you ain't getting no more since you just know.
Yeah, use that up. Thanks.
Like we said at the top of the hour, we are not experts. We are not insiders. Okay?
Not journalists. We're not good writers or anything.
We suck at all that. So let me ask you this, Emilio, right off the top of your head. If Hafley got the job at the Miami Dolphins, and let's assume that Matt LaFleur keeps the job in Green Bay, what would be your answer to DC? Would you promote from within? Would you try to go get Brian Flores? Is there somebody else you like better? Have you given any thought to that? Like, how, if you were in charge, how would you approach that?
Yeah, when I was catching up on a little bit of the ones earlier today, and I was thinking of that. I like the B-flow idea. I do. I mean, even if you say he goes to Miami, what if you pulled Campanelli back? I'm not mad at Covington maybe getting a chance at it again.
Let me hit timeout for just a second. So, and this is a great conversation piece. So with Campanelli, to the best of my knowledge, you won't be able to make that lateral move unless he's not an assistant head coach, because Campanelli's the DC in Jacksonville. So we couldn't bring him back to be the DC, right? Unless you're talking about like a head, if Matt.
Right. I think with that, I'm guessing Rich is out. You find a special teams guy, you use up the assistant head coach on a DC that has, maybe a little bit, behind him, a little bit of repertoire and stuff like that. I wouldn't be mad at that. Chris Shula, and that's another good one. But besides that, I would almost, rather, maybe dive in. Someone said earlier there, Al Harris on the Bears. I don't know if you're gonna be able to pull him over, but something like that, maybe a younger.
Say Al Harris. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're gonna love this. So we're watching the game the other night, the Bears game, and Mandy looks up at me and she says, Al Harris is their coach? And I said, yeah, man. I said, hell, he's got a family to feed. Don't, you go to a division rival. And she said, no, why isn't he here? And I'm like, Mandy, honey, what are you talking about? Like, you want Al Harris over Jeff Hafley? And she's like, why not? And I'm like, I started laying out the numbers. It got kind of heated in the living room. Lincoln's ears pinned back. He walked out of the room. I'm like, I ain't going to witness no domestic violence here. So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when you said Al Harris, I immediately thought.
No, what do you think? I mean, there are a bunch of options, but it's like you said, we got to get the base figured out. We got to get the gravel in there and tamp all that down before we can start laying any blocks. That's our issue right now, is we are still filling that pit with gravel.
Yeah. For me, man, in terms of if Jeff Hafley left as defensive coordinator, first of all, you guys know I don't like a defensive-minded coach as a head coach. Like, it's not my perfect. It's not that I hate it. It's just if I can choose, I want an offensive guru, mastermind, play caller as my head coach. That's just me personally. That's what I want. I want the guy who sets the tone with the offense, and it's offense first, and then you try to bring in. This has kind of been a great scenario here with Jeff Hafley to bring in this defensive mastermind to come in and kind of, get the defense back on track. Although I think we would all agree those last few weeks were pretty rough to watch, including that fourth quarter collapse there against Chicago. But if Jeff Hafley were to get the job in Miami, okay, Matt LaFleur stays, I now don't like the idea of promoting from within. Yeah. I think my choice would be go get B-Flow, Brian Flores, and he does not have a contract. That's not a lateral move. Like, his contract expired, so he's a free agent right now. He may get a head coaching job somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. But for me personally, that would be toward the top of the list for me, Emilio, would be Brian Flores. Bring in Brian Flores, and here's the reality too. Hafley's going to poach some of these assistants out of your defense, right? Okay. So you're good. He'll probably go get Derek Ansley or somebody, right? So you'll, if it's not Derek Ansley, seeing that he's a secondary coach, maybe he does take Covington.
Who was the one that came with him from BC?
Ogabasi.
Yeah.
Ogabasi. Yeah, big defensive line coach. So he would definitely go with him. There's no doubt about that, right? But I think he would take one of the top two guys that Matt would promote to coordinator. But now we don't even know if Matt has say in that with some of the stuff that's kind of coming out with this negotiation, right? Are they kind of clipping Matt's wings and not letting him make a decision on us? So, I don't know. Did I answer your question? I think B-Flow would be my top choice.
No, you did. I like that. No, I think that's a good. I think that's a good take. The problem is there's so few that you really kind of need to choose from that is going to be a good fit. You want to make sure that you have a secondary coverage, or do they have a blitz package? What are they normally running? What are we built for? Are they bringing over a 4-3 or a 3-4? Is it a lot of multiple? Are they running dime all the time? Are they in nickel only? So if I don't want to bring in somebody that's not going to be able to use the talent we already have, because we already went through that with Hafley, right? So we want to make sure that you're bringing in somebody that's going to use everybody we have and can look at the tape like Hafley did. Remember those pressers? It wasn't long ago. Like, dude, I love this guy because he can do X, Y, and Z when I put him in A, B, and C positions. When when this guy's on the field, I'm not sure about that, but I think we can work with him. That's what I want to see from the next coach.
Yeah. Solder says Raheem Morris, connections with Matt LaFleur, huge connections there, right? Former head coach. I don't think that's a bad move, Solder. I don't think that's a bad move at all, man. I would be okay with that one. Although some would say it's another one of Matt LaFleur's friends, and we'll have to hear that for another year and a half or 2 years, right? The way that goes. So there was one more in here. I think it was Coach Lynn said something, combination here. Yeah, Brian Flores with Micah Parsons would be nasty. I'm going to pull B-Flow's statistics in terms of his defense. We got Jacob joining us now. Jacob, the question that we're kind of tossing around here, if Jeff Hafley did get a head coaching job, you okay? What's up?
Emilio's cats are.
Jacob's girl's calling him. That's what it was.
Gotcha. So if Jeff Hafley is gone and he gets a head coaching job, who would be your top choice for DC? Would you promote from within? Would you go find somebody on the market?
I've went back and forth on this. If I understand your guys' conversation as I just jumped in, I think I get that he's probably going to steal quite a few of his kind of underlings, if you will, people that maybe have been with him, like you said, with Boston College, or even just in the last year and a half that he maybe kind of resonates with, and maybe guys that feel like that they trust the Hafley vision a little more. I wouldn't say more than LaFleur, but maybe they just want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? I really do think that Brian Flores is an absolute freak of nature when it comes to getting the most out of those defenses. I don't quite think that his just demeanor and history with the NFL matches what the Packers typically would do. But again, they said that about bringing in guys like, Zadarius and Micah and, insert a couple of different names here. So maybe they're kind of shifting. Obviously with Ed Policy kind of running the show, it's a little bit of a different ballgame that we don't really necessarily have a lot of we don't have a lot of track record to see what they're willing and not willing to do. I think that Brian Flores would be pretty awesome. Again, I think I agree with Doping by Tony B. Hell yeah, dude. Says we won't pay enough for Flores. I do feel like that we're going to be a little bit cheaper.
That's the thing, right? Like that's been the problem. That's it got kind of resurfaced with the special teams coordinator talk of where in 2019 Matt wanted to go get Darren Rizzi, and basically Russ Ball said nope, too much money. Like what are we doing? And now they're saying that Matt might be asking for too much money, and we're dragging our feet, and all these guys are getting interviews and everything out. It's just frustrating. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's I completely agree with that. And been listening to your podcast while I'm at work, listening to Ryan's, and it's a great mixture because you guys are, I don't want to say you're saying the same thing, but you're highlighting different angles and as to why this would make sense if that happens. And it's not necessarily black and white. It's just not. Right. I think I like what Jen says here. Maybe we find another gem, though. I would have to imagine that they're not just like to Clayton's point just now. Like, I know it seems like we're dragging our feet. I'm sure that policy and Gutekunst and whoever it may be that's involved in this is probably have some guys in the hopper for years now that they've been watching them develop, seeing what type of success they've had, what type of people they are. It is going to be interesting because you guys know me. I'm always the cheapest dude that's in the room. I guarantee you. So, like, if there's a way that we could try to, I think that's the biggest thing for me about the whole LaFleur conversation. It's not just the fact that we have to re-sign him. It's the fact that we're going to probably have to give him a significant increase to try to give that guy, a market value type contract when you compare him to, especially the guys in the NFC North. I was listening to Clayton's podcast earlier where he talked about how Schefter basically said, bump those numbers up, bub. Like those ain't necessarily what we're actually reporting are accurate. So in that aspect, I see the Packers kind of being more willing to not necessarily move away from LaFleur because of thinking he's not a bad coach, but more of the fact that the dollars and cents don't make sense.
Yeah. And some people, they kind of talk about, the Packers small market team we are, and we got to really watch our budget. And I agree. Right. But as Packer Doug said, the Packers had a reserve fund of $579 million as of March 31st. It's probably going to go over $600 million by March of this year. So, I mean, it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, again, do you want to win a championship or not? If you're going to skimp on coaches, you can't expect to win a championship. I'm sorry. That's just the way I see it. Listen, I own and operate several businesses. You're only as good as your tools. Emilio knows this. You're only as good as your tools. You're only as good as the money that you're willing to pump into the business. If you're not willing to invest money into a business, you're going to get your ass kicked. It's going to happen. It's got to take blood, sweat, and tears, a sore back when you get home, when you crack open that daddy soda, and you got to pony up the cash to have the proper tools, the proper equipment, the proper people to get the freaking job done. That's just life. So
$100 all steel shovel, Clay. I haven't had to go back and buy the $30 Huskies anymore. You know what I mean?
Bro, I'll never forget. They had me stand up at a business meeting, a business conference one time. They said, you own a landscaping business, right? And he said, how much one of those mowers cost you? One, I was like, that death trap will cost you $15,000 right there.
Yep. Easy.
People were like, oh God, yeah. What do you think? What y'all? And that's what cracks me up about people that talk down about business owners, right? Well, they're wealthy and they've done no. They're not out on the club on Saturday night, carrying around a warm $7 beer because they want to look cool. You know what I'm saying? Like they're actually investing their money back in their company. And when everybody else is out partying, having a good time, you're here crunching the numbers, doing paperwork, getting things ready for the next work week. Like that's the reality of being a business owner. So a small business owner, obviously there's some wealthy cats out there that probably sit with their feet kicked up. But so if I were to ask you guys, this is the last thing, then we'll move off of Hafley because we got to move on to the next topic.
Let me just do one thing. A shot in the dark defensive coordinator. Let's bring over the DC from Houston and give him the assistant head coach, Matt Burke. He's been there for 3 years, still doesn't have an assistant head coach, and they already have the assistant head coach on somebody on the offensive end. So
if we can do that, right, if that is a rule, right, I've never really gotten clarity on if that's actually
right.
But if it is, I'm with you. Burke,
something like that.
I can't believe his name isn't getting mentioned more, bro. Like, to me, he's the best defensive option, maybe outside of Flores. The question I was going to ask you guys, okay? I think that's a great one there, Emilio. But the question, if I'm going to ask you right down the line here, which one do you think had a better ranking? Scoring defense, Brian Flores or Jeff Hafley? Scoring defense.
Flores.
Yeah, Florida. No, Hafley.
Okay, it was Flores. Flores had the 6th best scoring defense in the league. Who do you think had the better yards per attempt, or not, sorry, yards per attempt, yards per play, which is essentially just total yards, running and passing together, yards per play allowed? Who do you think had the better one?
Probably B-Flow.
I'd go half on that one.
It's B-Flow. He's 3rd.
Oh, boy.
Best. Guess who had the better run defense?
Don't want to know it.
Brian Flores, 6th best run defense. Guess who had the better pass defense? Brian Flores, 7th best pass defense. He beat Hafley in every statistical category, and including takeaways as well. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Which pass rusher would you rather have on your team? Micah Parsons or whoever the best pass rusher is on the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah.
We'd probably choose Micah Parsons. He had a better pass rusher, right? Who had the better, let's say, safety tandem? Maybe it's a little closer. I don't know. I have a hard time believing anybody would pick the Minnesota Vikings safety tandem over, what we have in Green Bay with Xavier McKinney and obviously Evan Williams, right? Like, he did more with less. He's actually a better DC than Jeff Hafley. That's the reality of the numbers. I mean, we could pretend like the numbers don't exist. You know what I'm saying? But I was surprised. I was expecting one or two of those to go Hafley's way. That was not the case just now. So again,
crazy. It
would actually be going and getting Brian Flores. If he did not get a head coaching job, it would be an upgrade statistically speaking, based off how they played. And it's, to me, it's another testament too of, is Kevin O'Connell actually overrated? I mean, he had one of the best defensive coordinators in the game, and they had that bad of a season. What are we doing here, right?
That's a good point.
Great question. So anyway, there you go. There's your Jeff Hafley talk. If you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the Jeff Hafley situation? Who would you rather have at DC, right? Who would you rather have be your defensive coordinator? Would it be Brian Flores? Would you rather promote from within? Would you rather have, your Derek Ansleys or your DeMarcus Covington? Let us know in the chat. Also, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams. Let's talk some potential.
Real quick, Clayton, is this B. Timmy just put in the chat? Whoa, Cowboys asked to interview Covington for their DC. Do you know if that's
surprise me at all? Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. He's a former DC in New England. Now, it was a bad year for New England. Don't get me wrong, but he's that dude that's was coaching under Belichick. Handpicked him years ago, and he's a young coach that kind of came up through the ranks. Right? That doesn't surprise me at all. It doesn't. Now, will he get the job? Is he the lead candidate? I don't know. What team did you say, Jacob? What was
Cowboys.
Cowboys. Anybody can make that defense better. My God, that was horrible last year, boy. Especially as soon as they got rid of Micah, boy, the wheels really came out.
You saw that video? It's like Flus is a great guy.
Yeah.
The football.
Yeah. It's a football. So yeah. Anyway, so we did this yesterday. I did it on the show. We talked about Rasheed Walker and Romeo Dobbs. We're going to shift gears and talk about Malik Willis. Okay. Malik Willis and Quay Walker. I'm excited to get to the Quay Walker one. We're doing them in order of market value. So we put this up in our Patreon group. If you guys want to get this content, this extra content here, just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. It's the best way to support the show and get the extra content, kind of be ahead of the game when we do these type of breakdowns. So Malik Willis, PFF grades, right? What we're going to do is talk about his true market value and what do you guys think will happen? Is there a snowball's chance in hell that he returns to Green Bay as a $10 million backup, or do you think he's going to break the market? Let's talk about it. He had the second highest PFF grade in the entire National Football League. At the quarterback position, keep in mind that he didn't meet the minimum snap requirement, right? He had 97 snaps, but still played really good football. 92.3 was his PFF grade. Well, I know he can run the ball. What's his passer grade? 90.8. Okay. Dude was a dog. It was an absolute dog. So that's his PFF grades. When you look at how he ranks here, the only quarterback in the league, when you remove minimal snaps, or when you include minimal snaps, I should say, the only quarterback in the league that graded higher was Matt Stafford at 92.9. So it was Matt Stafford, then Malik Willis, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Drake May, and then Jordan Love at 88.8. Now, obviously, Jordan Love played 965 snaps to Malik Willis's 97. I imagine his grade would go down eventually, but who knows? The point is, Dan Orlovsky pointed out again today, we got to start removing prospects from the board, Emilio. I got to get on that. the kid from Oregon that was going to enter the draft. He decided to come back.
Dante Moore.
Yeah, he's coming back to college. And it was funny, too, that immediately Dan Orlovsky tweeted it out and said, all right, like I said, Malik Willis about to get paid a big check.
This is a rough quarterback class.
Yeah. So the more that those quarterbacks decide I'm going back to school, boy, oh boy, Malik Willis's value goes up. It's like we talked about with the market, right? It doesn't matter what you think a player's worth or your house is worth. What does the market determine its worth? There's going to be some quarterback needy teams out there that I think will go and get a player for sure. So with that being said, Malik Willis, how much money do y'all think he's going to get on the market? I'll start with you, Jacob. What do you think of Malik Willis, man? Like, how much money is he going to warrant? Because there's some people saying $40 million per, and then we got a fair market value that we'll talk about here in a second.
I mean, to be honest, I hate these types of questions. Not that you're asking a bad one. It's just the fact that at this point in the year, it's such speculation. And before the draft happens and before we see if there's any offseason injuries or whatever the case may be. But to be completely fair, I mean, those numbers don't lie. We looked at those PFF numbers, and we always preface it with saying PFF isn't everything. We understand that. But what we'd like to see is the progression, right? You see when he comes into the league, thrown to basically the cheese grater, for lack of a better term, over there in Tennessee, kind of had a coaching carousel, not quite, anything that's consistent there. Not a great surrounding cast, in my opinion, during those times. And then what happens? He goes to a coach that actually has a sort of rapport with quarterbacks, especially with a steady organization, somebody that tells him, hey, man, we got your back. Just want you to do this A, B, and C. And if you can do that, maybe we'll go on a DEF kind of stuff. And it seems like that he just absorbed that like a sponge. And you have the fact that you just, you get into the NFL. And I don't think that most teams would argue that the ideal thing to do is just throw a guy right in and just let him sink or swim, especially, again, on a team that's so inconsistent and has been lacking for so many years like Tennessee was at the time. The second he gets into Green Bay, has a little bit of tutelage from a guy named, Matt LaFleur. Have you heard of him?
I do a little tutelage.
I did a little tutelage. And all of a sudden you start to see the reason this guy was touted as a first-round pick, second round, just an absolute stud. The attributes have always been there: the height, the weight, the amount of athleticism this guy possesses. What I think that was more surprising to most people this year is we knew the guy could run. Wasn't he at Liberty? Am I thinking correctly?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. When he's, you can see that the athleticism in college, and you think, well, that maybe won't come to, fruition in the NFL. Well, it didn't for the first couple of years. And all of a sudden, when somebody got a hold of him that knew what they were doing and knew how to kind of maybe hone his specialties and whatever, you saw a guy break out into elite air. And again, 97 snaps, take that with a grain of salt. I understand that. But the way that he played just seems like that those 97 snaps could have been extrapolated over a long season. And I just feel like that he would have been still at least in the mid 80s. He just seems like that's not too, that the NFL is not too big for him at this point in his career. So I have to say that, I think that it's a snowball's chance in hell that we get him for anything less than 15 as like a maybe one or two like agreed backup. I think it's more realistic that somebody is going to offer this boy 25 to 40 mil easy per year, just because I just think he's that talented.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jen Wright says Miami new quarterback. Could be, right? That would make a lot of sense. John Eric Sullivan go get Malik Willis. Packer Doug points out NIL pays better than the NFL. In some cases, yes. Those are. It's not like every player gets paid that much, right? But you're right. Like with Dante Moore, is it Dante Moore? Is that right?
Yeah, Dante Moore at Oregon with those unis and all that, and not even he's good sponsorship. Yeah.
Donovan Schilling says $38 million per is what he thinks that Malik would get. Jen Wright says $30 million per. Stephanie says 20 to 30 million. In my opinion, I could see that. Not so cool said Justin Fields just got 40 million in 2 years for 2 years. That's a great point there, right? Let's see. Packer Doug says Orlovsky was feverish when he said 40 million. I bet he gets 28 to 32 million on a 3-year deal. I can see that. And Not So Cool says, I would say 25 million per, still needs to prove himself, right, Emilio? Like we're talking about the lack of snaps. Now, like Jacob pointed out, that was just PFF. I see your super chat there, Hardy. Thank you, buddy. We'll hit it in just a second. And you guys get your supers in. I promise we'll read them before the show is over. We'll kind of stay on topic here for just a second. So PFF isn't everything, right, Emilio? But EPA per dropback, he was third best in the league at a plus 0.69. So now you look at the names ahead of him. Nick Mullins. Would you take Nick Mullins over Malik Willis? No.
Who?
Would you take Mitchell Trubisky over? No. Would you take Tyson Bagent, who's right underneath him? No. Drake May? Yes, I would take Drake May over Malik Willis. So that's that's the company he's in again. Just 2 more spots down though. Jameis Winston plus 2.24. Of course, he played how many attempts there? 66 passing attempts, right? So pretty much twice the amount of passing attempts that Malik Willis had. Then next on the list is Jordan Love at a plus 0.20 on 439 attempts. I'm so glad Jordan Love's our quarterback. So again, EPA per dropback, Emilio, 3rd. Completion percentage over expected, 2nd at a plus 13.8%. And Jordan Love was 11th on that list right there. Passer rating, 1st in the league with a 145.5. And yeah, what do you think, Emilio?